Now let's think about what might be causing this rise of inequality. So currently, there's a huge literature. Economists have been thinking about this issue a lot. What drives rising inequality? One of the main arguments out there is technological change. The introduction of information technology it increases the demand for skilled workers. People need to be skilled to use machines, computers, and there's this increase in demand for skilled workers. And if there's more demand, the price you can think about workers, there's a price attached to workers, and that price is their wages. If demand for skilled workers increase, whereas demand for unskilled workers do not increase, you can see that the wage gap between skilled and unskilled would increase. So that's one of the arguments out there. Another argument could be that there's change in tax rates, where previously we would tax high-income households or individuals at higher rates and distribute that to society. But as we gradually decrease the tax rates on the rich, and it's likely that we'll see rising inequality. Also, it could be the change in supply of the educated population. Was there a increase or a drop in the supply of educated relative to the uneducated? That could also explain changes in inequality. Now, these are all valid arguments and has been argued within the literature, and it's definitely true. But in the case of South Korea, what's unique is that we see this drastic jump in 1990s. And did technology suddenly change in 1990, late 1990s in South Korea? Probably not. It was already a pretty technologically advanced country. It wouldn't have changed in just 1 or 2 years. Tax rates didn't change as well, and education levels didn't change as well. So there must be something else that drove this jump in inequality. And it has to be something that happened drastically, like we saw in that chart, because there's a jump. There's actually a big event that happened in 1997 in South Korea and other Southeast Asian countries. It was the Asian financial crisis. In 1997, there was a sudden financial crisis that we saw here, similar to what we saw here in 2008 for the U.S. A lot of firms went under, a lot of people were laid off, and stock prices crashed. Now, what happened afterwards is that there was a lot of change and structural change within the economy, especially relating to how people were hired, employed, and laid off. Before, Korea was pursued more of a long lifetime employment. Large firms would hire people at recruit younger college grads, maintain them throughout their careers within the same firm, and these young people would grow with their firms together. But now what changed is that there was change in labor laws, and that allowed firms to fire people much more easily. If they realized that this worker was not useful, they were able to fire them with less cost. And also there was a change in corporate governance system, because what happened after the financial crisis was that South Korea needed emergency money, and it was provided by the IMF, also another international organization that provides financial lending. But they provided conditional lending to South Korea, and the condition was that they need to restructure the whole economy, and they would introduce more of the Anglo-American type of corporate governance, where we often see directors playing an important role in firms, and new types of human resource managements, where laying off and hiring becomes much more flexible, and also the introduction of a salary system. If you, in the economy, in the U.S., often the case is that if you get a job, you negotiate a salary with your employer. But in South Korea, back then, there's a set wage table. You would know what your wage would be. Your wage wouldn't change. It would just increase year by year. But now that changed to more of an Anglo-American style of a salary system, and that also could have caused this change in inequality. Also, what happened was the rise of global competition. So after the Asian financial crisis, South Korea became a more open economy. Foreigners were able to invest more. South Korean firms also invested in foreign countries. And basically, the market expanded even more. The competition became even more fierce. South Korea now basically operates in a global economy. And if you think about the economy widening, there's larger amounts of competitions, so only the most productive, most technologically advanced firms can survive. And what happens is these firms get larger at the detriment of some smaller firms. And what happens is firm profits diverge as well as firm revenues, and that translates into worker earnings. So the rising global competition is another factor that might be driving the rise in inequality.